My first interaction with you, I'm not sure if you remembered or not, probably, um, was with it was at Vibe Out Fest in Woodbridge. It was a hot day.
It was Dumfries actually. So like it
Dumfries,
was
got you.
the Five Out Festival by Virginia Got Now back in 2017. And like it was a very, very hot day. Like I went to it with OGilla actually. Like
Really,
he like actually took me there because I used to be a part of that brand, like
got
when
you.
it first launched for like the inaugural year and a half. But
Word.
yeah, like going out there, we met up after I talked to 90, met up with Khan, Paul Lee for the first time,
Yeah,
Nick for the first time. And then our interactions was just really similar towards this. And then somewhere along the lines, like somebody was like recording a cipher
yeah,
or
yeah, yeah.
whatever. And then we got into the ciphers, and people knew me as like a writer, but they didn't know of my poetry or rap background. So everyone was just like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That element of surprise.
yeah.
That's what got me because I don't remember the contents of our conversation, but I remember being impressed by what you had to say. You know what I mean? There was a lot of substance
Mm-hmm.
in it, just multi-syllabic, rhyme schemes. I was impressed by that. And I think that was that event was beautiful because if you had no idea what was going on in kind of like the Northern Virginia music scene, that was the perfect opportunity to hit a lot of, the familiar faces and names. So I'm glad I got to, cross paths with you. For those who aren't as familiar with you as I am, can you tell us who you are, what your background is, and some of the things that you're up to currently? I know you wear a lot of hats, so
My name is Justin, but a lot of people know me as the writer slash slam poet Jay Guevara. Other social media names, which I'll get into in a short time: Henny Plank, B. Han, Scotty Prolific. Um, in the words of my mentor, Greg E. Hill, I would like to use the term of myself as a culture forwarder. Um, Slam poet, former music artist, which I'll get into later, uh, quasi MC, uh, speaker, writer, written for 6 different platforms in 4 years in November. Virginia Got Now, Henny and Coke, Lovelace Magazine, RVA Magazine, Feel Good RVA, and the Cheats Movement.
mm,
So, yeah. The best way to describe myself would be a culture forwarder.
absolutely very involved, very present. Um, that's quite the resume. How do you? And this is kind of a generic question, but I have to ask when you riff off all of these bullet points, how do you balance that all?
A good amount of those outside of the RVA mag and the Feel Good RVA. Like I literally did that during my undergrad in college, and a lot
Mm,
of people thought I was a mass communications major. The whole time I was studying health and exercise
yeah,
science, working in clinical research for VCU Health, like during my undergrad. And how I managed to fit those things was really just figuring out my schedule of things, because before I got into writing with Virginia Got Now and they wanted me to be like the Richmond rep, um, it was the same semester that I was overcoming addiction and academic probation, which I'll get into even more probably later on in the interview. But um, during that semester, pretty much, I learned how to form a schedule on like when I need to study, when I have class, when I have work, when I'm able to go to the gym, when I really have downtime. And it just really organized my mind to where that I didn't even need to write anything out anymore. Like I could just gauge it off of, okay, like I spent an hour on this, like I'm good. So like if I spend an hour on something 5 days a week rather than like 5 hours on something, I mean like a day, an hour for 5 days compared to 5 hours on 1 day a week, like the content and consistency is going to be better and fresher.
Well said, man. Well said. Anyone who knows anything knows how valuable relationships are. You know, some people kind of take advantage of that from kind of a strategic, calculated way. And other people know that, you know, it's about adding value because, you know, our impact on the world and the people who populate it, that's all we have. So when I look at how engaged you are in your community, right, in your artistic community, in your academic community, et cetera, I have to ask, were you always this community centered, or is that something that you had to kind of condition yourself into? Is that something you were forced into?
So with that, I would say I wasn't always like that because I was real shy and introverted, like within the earlier half of last decade. It's still crazy to say the 2010s,
Yeah.
last decade, but bear with me here. So that change started around 2015, and like it was pretty much me trying to get more involved. That was when I got into VCU. I lived in Southside Richmond my whole life, and Richmond has a bad history with being the former murder capital in 97, top 10 most dangerous cities in the United States consecutive years. 02, 03, 04, the highest we was at was number 4 in 2004, like as it pertains to total crimes anyway. 06, 07, and we were number 11 in 2019 as it pertains to homicide rates. So like as soon as I like started going to VCU, it was just like, okay, like I have more of Richmond to explore. I have more of Richmond to cover. And one of the main influences of that was before I went to VCU, like I was trying to figure out like which college to really go to at this point. At that point. And my math teacher verbatim said, "Get the fuck out of Richmond. There's nothing for you here." I took that as a challenge.
Yeah.
And I noticed that every year at like the reunions that we had for the program that we was in, the IB program, everyone was like, you know, like, get out of Richmond, like explore more, like there's nothing really here. And I'm like, I don't know, like y'all guys have to explore outside of y'all's own neighborhood, like learn more about the different parts of town. And like every time that I went back to my high school to speak annually, like I noticed how people was talking about more so of their college experience itself, but not really the things that they were doing like outside of classes or within their respective communities, whether they went to Greensboro, Blacksburg, Harrisonburg, etc. So I always had these variety of different experiences, and people are like, yo, how in the world you managed to do this? I'm like, I did it all in Richmond.
Yeah.
And like, I had some salty responses, which I was not really surprised of, but I'm like, it's a mentality shift, you know? Like, what's, like, to paraphrase Benny the Butcher a bit on his newest project, what's more important, the flower or the soil that it grows from? And it's, like, really all about perspective, because, like, in that case, like, my soil is Richmond, which always has been reckless before, died down a little bit, but then picked up within the last 5 years. But I was also the flower that wasn't growing well. And then my mentality changed, and so did a lot of the things that I was doing and the things that I was around. So, like, really just thinking about, okay, is it the flower or is it the soil that it's growing out of? So, yeah. And that's what made me heavy on being an influence, like within Richmond, but also Virginia as well. So, yeah. because a lot of people want to leave Virginia, but to paraphrase a tweet from the homie Khan, something about how people say get out of VA, but then they run into the same problems in LA, except they have less money. I'm like, yeah, like I know a couple of people that went through that. So yeah.
I want to talk about growth mindset because I think that you're somebody who embodies that, like you said, with the art, obviously, as well as with, you know, physical fitness. You're in many different areas. You know, you have a mentor. I just want to kind of get into what helped kind of foster this growth mindset in you.
To really go back to the flower and the soil metaphor, it was a combination of both of those things, because when I got into VCU, I was on better soil, but the flower itself still wasn't accustomed to the things that I was around. Although it was a really diverse environment, like I had to get accustomed to meeting people outside of the U.S. that came from countries that I only heard about like within history textbooks or TV shows. People with different socioeconomic backgrounds too. Like there's a huge influx of Nova and 757 kids that come to VCU. So I'm like, okay, like, and I had to get out of a mindset, like I had to get out of my own comfort zones to really establish that. I had to become more confident and learning through trial and error about those things. And a lot of people know my phrase on social media, the mission is too great, where I'll hashtag that in every post, or TMITG for short for like the hashtag. And the mission started 4 years ago, June 15th, 2016. And I'll give you my 2016 timeline. So May of 2016, like a month before the mission, I went from sleeping on floors to college dorms. And then I finished my freshman year, went back to sleeping on floors. This was at the earlier parts of the heavier stages of my addiction to pills. And my twin was like, hey, like Joe Budden is having this final concert in DC at the Howard Theater. We never been to a hip hop concert before. That was, so we went to the Howard, talked to some real like-minded people, Budden fans, people from Staten Island, Jersey, Delaware, and ran into this Petersburg PE teacher. And I'll mention why Petersburg later. So, like, after the conversation we had, like, literally just at the front row, because we snuck in the front row, because the front row tickets were different. But if you was there first, then you just had front row. So, like, talking to everybody that was, like, in their 30s, 40s really changed our mindset, like, after, like, finishing our first year of college and feeling disappointed because, again, going back from sleeping the floors to dorms, like that mindset started changing. And then days after, I found out I was on academic probation. Then August 25th, I succumbed to addiction and survived the overdose off of pills. And then days later, like I got help with the Campus Learning Center at VCU, the Well at VCU, just to really kind of like get that schedule mentality back up. And I had to keep telling myself every day that the mission is too great and focus on certain values of that. And in October 30th, 2016, like a month and a half before, I was on the Chiefs Movement podcast. And that podcast was in August days before my overdose. So like they were talking about Joe Budden at the time, because Budden was really hot on his views from Views. And they was asking me like, would you think that Budden would ever do like a concert again? So along the lines, I helped them get Joe Budden to perform at the Broadberry in Richmond.
Wow.
Literally from June to October of 2016, went from seeing the man live to kicking it with them VIP at the Broadberry and just chopping it up. And a few days later, like November 2nd or the 3rd, That was when the Forever VA hashtag thing started popping with Virginia Got Now. And then they rushed out to me because my pinned tweet was literally kicking it with Joe Budden. And they was like, oh, shit. Like, you know, like, how you feel about this? And I'm like, yeah, like, I'm with it, because I was trying to find other hobbies outside of what I was doing academically and working out. And like, all that came across, and I got over the academic probation, had a 3.4 for the semester, retained my scholarships, and just kept building up on that mentality ever since.
I wonder what your first experiences of accomplishment were, moments of affirmation where the world is telling you, where life is telling you, yeah, you can make things happen. Like, your voice does travel and it does affect things.
The first was my first ever lecture at VCU in 2016. And what happened with that in 2015 during my freshman year, my first college assignment was a diagnostics essay. So we had to write one out of like 3 certain themes. I can't remember the two, but the one I wrote about was a eulogy. But plot twist, I wrote it about myself. And I did a 4-minute presentation on it in a classroom of 28 people. And in that room, at 3 minutes, 58 seconds, yes, I was watching the clock with one eye and looking at the crowd with the other. 5 students were crying, including the 25-year-old transfer student from Chicago. So then the professor reached out to me like, hey, we do like a VCU TED Talk thing. Would you like to do that? Yeah. Like, but in the back of my mind, I'm like, I'm not going to see him for another semester, but because it was a university specific class, you had to have that professor for like your freshman year.
Gotcha.
So we linked up, did that. The video itself went on YouTube, and I sent it to my old IB coordinator from my high school. So when I went back to the high school reunion in 2017, she said that, hey, your presentation is being used at the University of Nevada. I'm like, oh. So her sister teaches there, and they didn't really have much stories about former grade school dropout turned first generation high school graduate and college graduate. When I got into VCU, like, it was the largest first generation college student population VCU ever had at 34.6 or 34.8%. Wow. So like, I was like, damn, like, my shit's being used in Nevada.
Yeah.
And then years later, I would lecture at Virginia State, located in Petersburg, talking about the mission. I would be at the University of Richmond, lecturing about national emergency preparedness and like how I traversed through college as a Richmond local first-gen college student, VCU, and a bunch of other different speaking engagements. But yeah.
You never know how far your voice will carry, man. There's power in your perspective. There's value in what you have to say, and you never know who you could touch, man. Like, fast forward, you're looking up and you're seeing tears streaming out of people's eyes because of, you know, stories that you've lived. And you know, that kind of brings me to my next question. Transparency in writing, right? So for many writers, the creative process is therapeutic. It helps us cope with and create meaning around, you know, the things that we experience. And to me, that process of sharing these things with the world is a sensitive balance, because some things are so real that they're best to be kept private, right? But at the same time, some of those very private experiences could be exactly what someone needs out there. You know, the closer we get to ourselves and who we actually are, the closer we connect to others. So how do you go about deciding what experiences are too delicate to share? Or is that at this point just a no-brainer for you?
For me, it's all about owning up to my story. And as someone that was highly insecure before, I go by a short quote out of like many quotes, like, the bigger the test that you face, the bigger your testimony will be. And with myself, like, I tell people like, hey, like, I'm a former gang affiliate, former grade school dropout, former addict, but I turned it all around. Like, you can't change your past, like own up to it.
Mm-hmm.
I know like some people might have regrets or whatnot, but it's all about how you spend today making sure that you have a better tomorrow.
Yeah.
So for me, with the experiences I have, like a lot of people wouldn't even know I was a former grade school dropout.
Yeah.
A lot of people didn't even know like I got out of Cert 13. A lot of people didn't even know like I would really like go through several of the things that I have went through, and became grateful, became much more humble from those experiences.
Yeah.
It's also being comfortable with yourself as well. Like
Yeah.
it took me years to become very comfortable with myself. I opened up on experiences on Feel Good RVA, just writing health articles about how I've had Crohn's disease. And that was something that I didn't really tell my family before. So once they saw that article, they was like, wait,
Yeah.
like you had Crohn's for how many years? Like, how did you
Yeah.
find out? Asking me questions about this and that. I'm like, yeah. And then there was a article that I shared. I mean, another article I posted about sexual coercion, because I
Mm-hmm.
was coerced earlier in the year one time. And
Yeah.
like, I didn't realize it until a week and a half later, based on
Mm.
like doing some research on Instagram posts from a valid source. So I'm just like,
Yeah.
oh, so this is what happened.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And then just be willing to share these things. And like, you never really know who you're like touching with sharing these experiences.
Yeah.
So, yeah, for me, that's why I write some of the things I write. I I'm transparent about several things, and yeah.
Super dope, man. Yeah, you said it, man. You never know who you can touch. You know, there's scars that we hide, you know, and the moment that you know, reveal it and hold it up for people to see, then someone else who has the same one is like, so I'm not crazy, right? So I'm not broken. So there isn't something wrong with me. Like this is a shared experience, even though we feel isolated within it. So you know, I appreciate that, man. I'm a writer, and there are things that, you know, sometimes I think, you know, what would my wife think? What would my mom think? You know what I mean? What would the world think? So it's always I don't know, it's always inspirational to see someone else bearing things that exceed the severity of some of the things that I hold in. You know what I mean? So
And also just being really comfortable with yourself and your experiences, because there will be people out there that will try to use the experiences that traumatized you as leverage
yeah, yeah,
within a argument, or just to bring that out as a provoking point, just
yeah,
out of the blue about something that's not even being discussed,
yeah,
or just put it out there on social media, like the typical, is this you? And
yeah,
then
yeah,
it's
yeah,
like,
yeah.
yeah, like this happened a few years ago. I learned from it.
Mm,
I kept it moving. Like it's not affecting who I am now,
yeah,
because like again, like I've learned from these things, and I've done better ever since.
yeah.
So,
I think that's the perfect response to this you. It's like, yeah, it is. Like, now what? Now you can't, like, this isn't something that can hold me down now. Now this is what I use. I integrate it into, you know, the whole me instead of
exactly,
trying to hide from part of myself. Um,
exactly.
Getting into one of the topics that you brought up, um, it goes without saying that addiction is a sensitive topic. It's something that plagues so many of us. Um, as kind of a functioning alcoholic, I have an extreme appreciation for what you had to endure and who you've become in the process of, you know, overcoming your addiction. So can you tell us about what it was like to break through those chains of addiction and some of the things internal or external that had to happen in order for you to say, all right, this is no more. Like I'm tackling this thing.
Going back to that 2016 timeline, really learning how to reach out for help.
Mm,
Colleges, they have a wide variety of resources some professors will be very understanding of your situation. I had very understanding bosses. I never told them about, my overdose or anything like that. But I remember the moment that hit me was when I was in the office of my supervisor, literally twiddling my thumbs. Like, I felt like I was defeated. And I was like, I don't think that I might be back next semester. And they was like, what you mean? Because literally in the first year that I was doing clinical research, like, I was ahead of everything for them. So they was very surprised, like, wait, like, what's going on? So, like, asking for help on those things. And like, they was the ones that pointed me out to the campus learning center. I was also reflecting on past experiences too, because during my adolescence, one of my first addictions was truly lean, but I used to get triple faded off of lean, alcohol, and weed. And I remember frequently thinking about two incidents: the overdose itself, and one incident several years ago before VCU where I was triple faded. And like, I was at a homie's place. We literally went to some school buses at a school that was nearby, just gone, and just stealing shit from the school buses. Like, I don't exactly remember how we broke into the school buses, but I just remember, like, just sitting in the back, like, oh, this is wild.
Yeah.
And like, I was like, yeah, like, I'm not trying to go back to that ever. So, and just to put things into perspective about my overdose, like, I kept on telling myself, like, look, I already died. Like, there's no lower point. There's no lower point for me to go.
Yeah.
And I still tell myself that to this day, like, regardless of whatever I may be facing, I'm like, okay, like, I know I can't go any lower. Like, the only thing is up. So, like, just to overcome all that and to also have even more of a support system was very, very helpful. And people didn't know I went through the addiction until 8 months clean from the overdose. I mentioned it in a very long post on Facebook because I was crying in my art history class randomly one night, just thinking about everything and the traumas. And people was like, oh my gosh, like, what? Like, you never said anything to us, and like, how? And so, and it's a matter of, like, for me, the hardest part was the withdrawals. Like, early on, like, I was having breakdowns, panic attacks, random sweats. Like, it was terrible for the first couple of weeks. And like, after that, I'll just transfer that energy into working out, transfer that energy into my academics, and taking time to love myself even more. Like, that was where the foundation of my self-love and confidence began to truly build up.
Yeah. Dope, man. Thanks for sharing that, man. I know we're not like, best friends who, kick it every day and know everything about each other, but I'm proud of you, man. And I appreciate you sharing that because, that adds so much meaning to what you went through if it can help other people who are going through the same thing. Because we're out here, man. There are so many of us who feel like we don't have the strength and who are afraid to, swallow that pill of humility that it takes to ask for help. You know what I mean? So appreciate you sharing that, man. The mission told through poetry, a collection of poems. The first piece that I want to get into is flowers. We talked about, looking at the flower and looking at the soil that it comes from, which to me gives it new depth because I was kind of looking at it as, receiving your flowers while you can still smell them. I've been thinking about legacy lately and what sort of impact do you want to have? I get a sense of what that is, but I'd like to hear it in your own words. When they finally give you your flowers, so to speak, what will you want them to remember you for?
I would really want them to remember me for how I lived my mission out. And to me, the mission is about progression. It's about love. It's about passion. It's about support. It can be anonymous. Just living every day, focusing on the core principles of the mission. And everyone's asking me like, well, everyone asked me like, do you feel like you're like not achieving your goals or this or that? And I'm like, I'm achieving my goals every day because I'm living through the mission. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's all about progression. I'm focusing on the journey much more than the destination.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact, like, I know that I'm going to be remembered for my generosity, for my loving spirit, to love through an unbiased matter, because I grew up without that love. I grew up around plenty of hate. And I literally start off the Flowers poem with saying, I'm so used to hate that appreciation is a hard feeling.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
like that just being the opening line itself, like that's what literally finished out the rest of the poem. And Flowers was written in 2018. I'm unsure if it was like early or middle of 2018 when I wrote that, because the book itself is a collection of poems from 2017 through 2020, some that I put out, others that never saw the light of day. And Flowers is one of them that no one ever really like read or I put out on social media, none of that. So like I talk about my story during that time, and yeah, so
Love it.
that's exactly how I want to be remembered.
I always laugh when you stumble upon a work from one of your favorite artists or writers, and they reveal to you that this was something that, you know, they were just gonna, you know, keep on the hard drive or, you know, keep in the journal. So I'm glad that this is one of those that saw the light of day. I'm glad that this flower sprouted, to give a you know, a corny pun. But another one that I really liked was Visionaries. As we grow older, we gain a stronger sense of what values and principles we keep close. And as a result, sometimes we lose friends and relationships that don't necessarily align with our vision, our lifestyle. And, you know, hopefully we gain relationships that add value to our lives, and relationships that allow us to add value into the lives of others. So as you cross paths with other driven people, with other personalities, I wonder, what are some of the qualities and principles that you look for in others, or some red flags that you try to stay away from?
Like if they use bro or family just from the first interaction, that's just like really cheesy to me. That's something that I'm like, like I'm not your bro. We just met. Don't use like certain lingo around me to like make it look like it's going to be like, you know, like this, because any, like I look out for certain words or certain phrases, because it's like, okay, like I would love to help you, but how are you going to help me? Like I had conversations where like it was literally just that, to where it was like, okay, you know, I could help you, but how are you going to help me more so? Like, you know, like help me.
Right.
And like I come from the perspective of the paraphrase Michael Millions from Water 3, which I also said to my students at Virginia State, the only way to get more is to get plenty. So I already know what I bring to the table. How can you bring your stuff to the table and make sure all of us eat with like the proper entrees, the sides, you know, have the, you know, like the nice desserts over there. How can we make some of this work? And it's also about, what have you done in regards to like the abilities that you've possessed? Like how did you apply these things before? It's really like I try to present myself in a formal, very moral matter. So if there's like a lack of interest, fillers or like responses, like short phrases or whatever being exchanged during conversation, it's like, okay, you're not really interested in building together. You just want me to give you the keys to the car so you could drive off. So yeah. For Visionaries, so how that happened, so how that poem happened, I did a podcast called Views from the 601 podcast with Darrell Reese Jr., head of Goldprint Entertainment and Mississippi State University student. I did 2 of his episodes. Both of the episodes were the most viewed in 2019. So with him, like, we met up via Twitter and we just kept in touch. Like, I would support his stuff, he would support my stuff. I'm like, okay, like the love is mutual. So that was when he had me on the podcast for the first episode. And then after the second episode, which was a 2019 wrap up thing, he told me about the short film. Like, he supported my poetry and was like, hey, like, I'm doing a short film. Would you love to write a piece to it? I'm like, yeah, like I would definitely do that. And the short film is about his upbringing and like some of the topics that we will always discuss on this podcast is financial literacy, wealth, how to create profit off of the variety of things that you can do, because you could literally have a 9 to 5 and still work on things like in a creative perspective. You could still own stocks, like you could still run a website. Like, don't let a 9 to 5, like, well, don't let people shun you because you have a 9 to 5.
Right.
There's way more than 1 or 2 sources of income. So like, there's always going to be money around. With Darrell and I, a common motivator of us is Nipsey Hussle, who like created stem cell programs of Vector 90, like within his own hood of Slauson and in California, always discussed about owning everything to where like he was able to own all of this music. So 100% of the streams or sales go to his family. So like, rather than cutting it through a middleman, like everything goes to them. So my theme for Visionaries, the poem itself, was not only talking through the perspective of Darrell, but also like putting in gems about financial literacy and wealth. Like, I was thinking through a Geechee Gotti perspective of like every bar. So like, I made sure to include like some mentions of like bar graphs, investing, how to really like formulate a plan on how to become a successful individual. So it was very like, it was very intricate. Like, there's a lot of different references that I use in there.
Where can people find that particular piece?
Here's the thing. The piece is only in the short film and the book. The short film, there's a RSVP screening for it, which if you follow Goldprint Entertainment on Instagram, or on Darrell Reese Jr.'s Twitter, DA2Rs, E2Ls, Reese Jr., like the link for the RSVP for the online private film screening is on October 27th, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. If it wasn't for the pandemic, I would have went out to Mississippi to actually be a part of the film screening.
Yeah.
So it's only in the film and the book.
Gotcha.
And for the rollout of my book, like, I wanted to use that specifically. Like I only wanted it on those platforms specifically until the film officially comes out, and then potentially put that poem out on my own platforms. Like that's something that I want to be very exclusive.
Yeah.
And I use that as like a part of the rollout for the book.
Super dope. Super dope. There was a specific quote I want to kind of extract. It was a major gem, and it's a reminder that the money in the bank doesn't matter as much as being authentic. I wonder what are some experiences you might have that drove this lesson home for you, that money in the bank doesn't matter as much as being authentic.
So let me go on like my rap genius
Yeah. Please.
method here. So I said that my chase for the Holy Grail expounded new levels of business, networking a wide web, spinning new missions that's too great to wait and pass. I carry myself with class to be opportunistic, a cunning edge to be prolific, the spearhead a brand beyond bandwidth. Money in the bank doesn't matter as being authentic. The down sure sting, but when the bell rings for closing sales, a Scorpion King will rock the culture. The leader Wolfpack where everybody eats. To me, that's too sweet. How those bars were set up. My chase for the Holy Grail expounded new levels of business. I was thinking Jay-Z's Holy Grail. Networking a wide web, spinning new missions that's too great to wait and pass. Afro mentioned using social media platforms as like a business tool, like within the poem. So it's just continuing from that. Networking a wide web, spinning new missions that's too great to wait and pass. Thinking of like a spider's web, if you will. People know me on social media for saying the mission is too great, but spinning new missions as well, like new opportunities. I carry myself with class to be opportunistic, a cunning edge to be prolific. Edge, the WWE superstar, he was known as the ultimate opportunist because he has one of the most decorated resumes for a wrestler of all time. The spear, so to go to the Money in the Bank line, Edge won he had the first two briefcases for the Money in the Bank ladder match, where if you're not familiar with wrestling, think 6 to 10 people in the ladder match climbing up to get a briefcase the way you could cash it in on the champion at any time. It is a WWE pay-per-view currently. The spearhead, the brand beyond bandwidth, Edge's finisher, like his finishing move is a spear. So to literally just like run right into somebody and spearing them. The spearhead, the brand beyond bandwidth, thinking in technological terms, from like networking a wide web, like just tying in more metaphors with, using social media platforms. The spearhead, the brand beyond bandwidth. Money in the bank doesn't matter as being authentic. Money in the bank, bandwidth, talking about stacks, rubber bands.
Bandwidth. All right. Okay.
Yeah. But money in the bank doesn't matter as being authentic, because with how you carry yourself, money doesn't change you. It further instills who you already are, whether you're in a moral or immoral mindset. The down sure sting, but when the bell rings for closing sales, a Scorpion King will rock the culture. Like to even tie that in some more, the down sure sting, but when the bell rings for closing sales, like when the stock markets close and the aftermarket start, like they ring a bell for the closing sales. Also, how a wrestling match ends, you ring the bell. The down sure sting, but there's a wrestler, legendary WCW and TNA wrestler Sting, that was literally known for having like scorpions on like the side of his legs for like his tight logos. And his finishers was the Scorpion Death Drop, a reverse DDT, and the Scorpion Deathlock, which was a sharpshooter. The down sure sting, but when the bell rings for closing sales, a Scorpion King will rock the culture. The film itself, the short film, is called Scorpio because Darrell, he's a Scorpio. He's going to drop the film officially around his birthday. Also,
Scorpion King.
The Rock, the main actor in Scorpion King, a Scorpion King will rock the culture. The Rock, highest paid actor in Hollywood history. A Scorpion King will rock the culture. So like after like, the hard match ends, like someone will rise above and literally spearhead their own brand beyond the internet, talking about internal influence. To lead a wolf pack where everybody eats, to me, that's too sweet. Sting was a part of the NWO, New World Order, but they had their own like branch called the Wolf Pack. So like how, like tying it to gang culture, Sir 13 is a branch of MS 13. So the Wolf Pack was a branch of NWO. So tying that in, the even more wrestling reference, the leader Wolf Pack where everybody eats, to me, that's too sweet. And too sweet is just another wrestling metaphor that I tied into it. So
got you. Dude, that is layered. Like I'm picturing like like a detective like putting his thread through all the pictures, just like tying shit together.
like,
I love that shit.
yes.
Hell yeah, man. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that, man. You're so it that kind of answers the question that I want to lead to next. Just talking about battle rap culture. So when you break down such an intricate scheme that from beginning to end, you know, maintains that thread, you exemplify it. It's clear to me why you're a fan of it, but let's get into it, man. So you mentioned in the book that your style is in part influenced by battle rap. Having dabbled in that arena myself, I consider it to be one of the last spaces of the genre where pure skill, you know, trumps things like popularity, politics, marketing, social media, all that stuff. Can you tell us about your introduction to the battle rap scene and what it is about battle rap that compels you?
October 30th, 2016, the Joe Budden concert. One of the opening acts was Breeze the Poet, National Slam Poetry Champion, versus URL battle rapper Madface. It was a very interesting one-rounder, two very different styles. One was more like poetic, like bar synchronizing. The other was like punchlines, having that certain swagger.
Yeah.
Like when you like say your shit, because like how you present it can be more powerful than the context itself. So it was like two very different styles. And then like that was when in 2017 it was Baptism by Fire, which was an event by Southpaw Battle Coalition, which also sponsored the Joe Budden event as well. In January, I ended up like being on stage with Breeze the Poet, supporting him in a battle against my future OG Moon from Black Money Mob. Shout out Moon and the whole entire Black Money Mob squad. Like it was very interesting just being on stage and just like just watching it, like being in the middle of the line of fire per se.
Yeah.
I'm like, And then like as I got to go to more of the battle rap events, I started talking to the battle rappers. I started talking to the fans, and people was like, whoa, like you really know your shit. And then when the RVA Rap Elite, which is now the RVA Lyricist Lounge, I mean, the other way around. The RVA Lyricist Lounge came around, which is now known as the RVA Rap Elite in 2018. I started doing the ciphers and like for the entire first season, which was almost a year straight. And one of the Southpaw battle rappers himself, Habib, challenged me to a rap battle because he's like, yo, like he gave me the freezer look, like, so.
Yeah.
And at first I said no, because like just thinking through a morale standpoint, I'm like, I don't want to get overly disrespectful, because battle rap is literally where, like, to paraphrase an old tweet from CO, like you could literally talk about somebody's mom dying off of some shit, and if they flip out and get mad, you basically win. Like for me, I know that I would get physical things like at that mind space I was in. So it was just like, no. But then a few months later, I said yes. The battle never happened due to a variety of reasons, but like just to really tie in, like, and just to catch certain similes, to catch certain metaphors, to catch all of the references. Like that's something that I will literally listen into. And I'm like, okay, I see why you said that. And there was a battle at the School Days event by Southpaw in 2018. And I remember it was John Chillum versus Moon. And Chillum was going along the lines of like how Moon was talking about his gang, Black Money Mob, and you know how they're like mobbing and shit, and like, but they're running away from problems. So literally, I'm thinking like, oh shit, like the way that he's saying gangster is like he needs to include a line about the word angst, because angst is spelled ANGST, which the definition of it is traits of insecurity. But like literally, I walked up to Chillum after, pulled up angst in the fucking Merriam-Webster dictionary app, like, hey, you know, like you really could have said this against them for that. And then like Chillum and the herb people was like, yo, like, why didn't you think about that? Like that would have been fire. I'm like, yeah. So it just really influences that. But also battle rap, like you gotta have a lot of confidence.
Yeah.
And that energy.
Yeah.
Being around the battle rap environment like really helped me become the more energetic person that I am. Like I approached a lot more things with assertiveness compared to like January of 2017, after the semester of like academic probation and addiction. Like I was still trying to traverse my way around, but I didn't really lead too much with like confidence. So in 2018, like after being around like the battle rap scene for like a year and some change, like I started having that confidence as well. And it just carried over. So I always appreciate that energy. And just cause I'm a gym rat, like, yeah, like I love like punching people in the back of their chest whenever like battle rap bar come on.
Hell yeah.
And yeah, like people be like, damn, like you strong as shit for 5'8". I'm like, whoops. But yeah, like, yeah, that's where my love for battle rap come from, like just within my community, and to even like meet up with like battle rappers themselves. And it's so weird because like I know a lot of the battle rappers on the local and national platform. So it's like battle rap helped me remove the celebrity presence from a lot of people. Like the only true celebrity, I guess, that I really flipped out on, like, holy shit, oh my gosh, was Mike P, out of all people.
Really?
Yeah, like during
he's a beast.
Like during Band Legacy 2, where he battled Drugs, and I was on stage for that last battle. But I remember watching Mike P like all throughout the 2010s, like, yo, this boy nice.
Yeah.
Like I never reacted like that when I met Sway, Joe Budden, MC Light, Mad Skills, Nicholas F, Moon, Spanish Harlem, Twart, Drugs, Ace Amin, David Banner. Like I never reacted like as like a crazy fan, like, oh my gosh. Only Mike P, for whatever fucking reason it was that night. Like the first, like that night at Band Legacy 2 was great. Like it was the best night of like the weekend. Like, so like just being around that is like, okay, like I met y'all's favorite artists. I met y'all's favorite battle rappers, your favorite producers. Like they're like literally homies. Like it's so weird because a lot of my homies that's familiar with like music, underground rap, battle rap, they're like, damn, like how the hell you met up with Moon? I'm like, Moon and I, like, we've been through some shit in the battle rap community, so like we good. How in the hell you know Nick F? I'm like, I had class with him, and then we became cool after working out with each other. Mad crazy, like just working out outside on like some Loaded Lux like shit, doing like at like 115th Street like type shit. But yeah, like just tying in and just keep building up on those like relationships to where it's just like normal. But the whole celebrity thing is like, you realize they're normal people too. It's just that the fact that they're known for their accolades and known for their money, that gives them that celebrity type of presence. Because honestly, if it was Drake, for example, like I would talk to him like how I would talk to you, like, yo, like, thank you for everything that you did. Like, I appreciate it. Ask like 1 or 2 questions and just keep it moving.
Hell yeah, man. I think one thing about Mike P is like he's like this, just like this radiant ball of like personality. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you really get the sense of like this is someone who studies the craft and, you know, really established a name for himself. So that had to be pretty dope to meet him and kind of pick his brain, because he's an animal, man.
Yeah, because like like the interaction was short. Like I just really wanted to keep it frank because I was maneuvering through that entire room.
Yeah.
And like I was just like, oh my gosh, Mike P, like, yo, like, thank you for everything, man. Like, I remember watching your shit in high school and you bodying people. Like, I'm amazed at your growth, and just like kept it at that. Cause I was like, damn, like I really fanned out. Like, I know like this guy's like,
he was probably mad cool about it.
Like, thank you. But he was just like real grateful about it. And then again, like talking to like battle rappers and shit, like how I met New Jersey Twerk was the first time I saw him was 2017 at this other Southpaw Battle Coalition event, Legends Never Die 3. And then 2018, I was at this LLC event, the League of Champions event. I think it was Mean 3 or Mean 2. And like New Jersey Twerk was just chilling like in the VIP club. I mean, like in the VIP section, but like there was nobody around, like as it pertains to security around the section. So I'm like, all right, fuck it. I'm gonna just go ahead and like walk up to Twerk. And then we chatted, and then he went outside to like smoke, and then I'm still like chatting it up with him, like literally looking up to him.
That's a tall dude, man.
I'm like 5'8", so I'm like, all right. But yeah, like just like carrying myself in the way of like being calm, cool, and collected. And
I want to ask you kind of if you were pitching this book to somebody and you had to pick one of the pieces out of there, which one would be your favorite one? And if you wouldn't mind, could you kind of, you know, give us a piece of that?
One of my favorite pieces of all time in general is actually in this book, and it's called Ordinary Love Shit Part 4. And I wrote a series of poems called Ordinary Love Shit from, like, it was supposed to be annually, but then in 2019 I wrote 3 different installments. So I'm just like, damn, okay. Like, it's that and Visionaries as like 1A and 1B for like my best like technical writing pieces ever. Because for Part 4, like, I literally start off with saying, you ever stop looking for something and what you're looking for appears. Funny how life works like that. When I don't flirt like that, what I see comes along, appear. I sat on piers as a woman cried tears and only understood from the outside end of their softer upbringings. Our stories were always different. So when I told mine, they cried and were surprised on what I overcame and how I had no shame of my past. When I began knowing you more, it was like talking to a shattered mirror. Your body is a house. Your soul is the foundation. So when I saw your eyes and realized how the window panes revealed your pain, I said, with you, I want the gain to maintain. So like the opening lines of that was like was describing my past experiences of never having somebody that went through the same pains, if not worse than the things I went through that I mentioned in the interview. So having someone with that relativity, like really for the first time, was so surprising. And like one of my favorite cadences of all time, which is battle rap like influence, which I'll get into. So I said that We grew up in poverty, gang influences, and more, slept on floors using the oven for heat as our blood broiled over how our moms toiled to keep our family stable. We worked under the table to provide for the house. I did leg work while you carried the arms, but risking our lives, putting ourselves in harm to maintain stability, unloading our emotions through our own versions of artillery. We put lead to paper like it was target practice, aiming for better lives, visualizing a better time, living in the room while trying to survive. So, like, just describing all of that, along with like saying we worked under the table to provide for the house. I did leg work, like mundane runs, street runs, etc., errands, like odd jobs, all that earth shit, while like you carry the arms, both risking our lives to put ourselves in harm to maintain stability, to, you know, help our moms, unloading our emotions through our own versions of artillery. We put lead to paper like it was target practice, talking about the lead of the pencil towards paper. But at a shooting range, you put a fucking lead bullet through some fucking target paper.
Yeah.
Aiming for better lives, you know, trying to kill what's trying to kill us. Visualizing a better time, living in a room while trying to survive. Whether you're in that life or death situation moment, living in a room while trying to survive, or like you're going through some like suicidal ideation and you're trying to write out your emotions through your own versions of artillery, trying to survive in not just the physical room itself, like a living room, but also your own mental capacity.
Yeah.
And yeah, like that whole poem itself, which I'm not going to say it all entirely,
Right.
like that was my best technical writing until I got to Visionaries per se.
Super dope, man. And I love the intensity with which you deliver it as well, man. Like, it's one thing to read it, but to hear you, you know, perform it, I appreciate that, man. I think this is going to touch a lot of people. Where can people find the book? Where can people find some of your works?
The link in my bios on Instagram and Twitter, which my social media handles are Justin is Prime. The website is justinisprime.wordpress.com. It's a website I have for a couple more years. For a couple of years now. The book itself can also be found on Amazon, but some of my works and some of my interviews with Virginia Got Now, Henny and Coke, Feel Good, RVA Mag, etc., some of the works that I highlighted through my freelance writing experiences are also on that site. My poems are more so on my IG as well, just for like auditory experience. And even in some of the posts, like I literally break down some of the lines that I say. So like literally it'll just be like an Instagram post on social media, but the website justinisprime.wordpress.com.
All right, man. I think this is the time for kind of just some closing statements. If there's anything that you want to touch on that we haven't exactly covered thus far.
Other than the short film, RSVP online film screening thing, which if you follow Goldprint Entertainment on Instagram or Darrell Reese Jr. with 2 R's and 2 L's on Twitter and Instagram, like the RSVP links are in this bio for that. I'll eventually put that information on my website as well. Outside of that, there's a few other things that I'm trying to work on, possibly something with my mentor and his network. I got a couple of different interviews for Feel Good RVA still in the works as well. The rollout for the book was solid. It's almost a month now, and I'm just super thankful for everyone that truly supported. I was genuinely surprised that people from different states wanted an autographed copy. So I had to send one to Vegas. I had to send one out to Maryland. I got others I got to send to like New York, Cali, and South Carolina. I also made it an ebook too on the Amazon Kindle app as well, which you can also find that on like my website. So had an ebook sale in China from someone that I know that's teaching over there. So I was like, that's my first international sale. Like, that's
man.
really dope. So yeah.
Oh man, it's cool to hear that this thing has wings, man. I'm still getting through it. I wanted to take my time with it. Didn't want to rush, didn't want to cram because as layered as you are, man, it deserves the time. And I hope that more people go out there and get it. It's called The Mission Told Through Poetry by my man Jay. And yeah, man, I appreciate your time. And I appreciate your contribution, to the community, local and global, since we see that we're touching, multiple countries. And yeah, man, I appreciate your time. And I can't wait to post this online and for other people to, get acquainted, to you and with your works.
Thank you. Thank you. Like, one of the highlights, because I've been asking people like what they think about the book. They said the epilogue really ties in everything that I've written in the book.
Yeah.
Because like the preface breaks it down a little bit,
Yeah.
but I
The
give more
sections.
acknowledgments in that. But the epilogue will tie everything in together, and you'll see what I mean through the book. So
Absolutely. All right, man. Well, I think that's a successful interview. I feel like we dropped some gems in there. So I
indeed,
appreciate you
indeed.
for that, man.
All right, man. We'll stay in touch. I'll
Oh
see
yeah.
you.
All right, man. Be good.
It may sound silly.
Face.
It may sound silly.
Filthy too.
It may sound
Killer
silly.
Kane, what up? NFR.
It may sound silly.
Look.